VCT Champions Seoul is just around the corner, and it's time for us to do our pick'ems and predictions for the group stage. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today we are doing my predictions and pick'ems for VCT Champions. The start of the tournament is a group stage, 4 teams per group, 4 different groups. Let's see what we think. Starting with Group A, which features 2 opening matches of Fnatic versus Bilibili and DRX versus Crew. So starting with Fnatic versus Bilibili, this one shouldn't take too long. Bilibili is the 4th seed in China, most famously known for its victories over Energy last year, but that was 2023, this is 2024. They don't look like one of the more dominant teams in China. They were the 4th best team in the league to make it here. And Fnatic in 2023 were back-to-back trophy winners and then had a very good run at Champions. Didn't win it though. Then they missed out on Madrid. Shanghai wasn't the result that they wanted. They ducked out very early. So I think this team now should be very motivated to go on a strong run at this tournament because they will be called frauds if they don't go on a good run, and I don't think they want to do that. I think they're really going to be motivated, and they just clearly outclassed Bilibili. I'm going with Fnatic. I don't think that deserves too much defending. However, we have DRX versus Crew, which is definitely a closer matchup. DRX went on a strong run of the VC Pacific Stage 2 to end it. They did make it all the way to Grand Finals, took a map off of Gen G, but couldn't get it done against them. But they did miss out on the first 2 international tournaments this year at Madrid and Shanghai, after making some roster changes heading into this VCT season, which looked like they really ended up being the wrong moves. However, now they look pretty good, and there was that controversy that recently happened, and it seems like those accusations against that player are either false. I don't want to make a definitive claim that they are, but either they're false or there's mistranslation. It's a weird situation, but either way, I don't think DRX is going to make a roster change, so I think we know who we're heading into. And Crew is a team that has had a very up and down year so far. They didn't qualify for Madrid. They lost to G2 both times at kickoff. Had a very strong run in the regular season split in Stage 1, but then lost in playoffs pretty quickly. And then their Stage 2 was pretty mediocre after swapping out Klaus for MTA coming back, and then they looked like a pretty mediocre team heading into that playoffs, but they ended up getting it done and qualified for this tournament. A strong game against 100 Thieves to qualify for it, and a hard-fought battle against Leviathan. So I see a lot of people picking DRX for this one, and I understand why. They do look like a very good squad. However, I think Crew, having the embarrassment of losing their only 2 matches of Champions 2023, I think they have a lot better of a shot than a lot of people think. They went on a very good run during the LCQ of Americas last year to make it to that Champions, and they did a similar thing here, but more inconsistent, more ups and downs. I do think Crew have a shot at this. I think this is going to be a very close match. I can see either team winning, but at the end of the day, I think the experience, I think the motivation is just going to be there just a little bit more for Crew, and I think they take this one. Going down to the elimination match, we have Bilibili versus DRX. Not going to spend too much time on this one. I think DRX should be able to get that done. So Crew versus Fnatic, a very interesting matchup as well. I've already explained the context behind both teams, but which team ends up having the edge. I do think Fnatic is the easy favorite for this one. I think they have a much better squad than Crew. And while upsets do happen, I think Fnatic is going to take this one. I don't see this as an upset that I see happening, which means we get a match that is a rematch between Crew and DRX. So who makes it to playoffs? DRX, coming off of a win against Bilibili, probably have a little bit of the nerves calm down, while they do have a good amount of experience on that roster, with Mako and Buzz being a part of the team that went on many different champs runs, not being able to get it done. But DRX usually, I think always, make the playoff bracket. So are they able to do that against Crew? I'm going to say Crew go on a little bit of a miracle run in the group and end up taking the rematch. Call me crazy, but I definitely think that it's possible. DRX, most of their players are new to the international stage. Maybe the recent controversy, while it seems to at least be mostly settled, might be a distraction. And I just think Crew are just going to have a little bit more of an edge. I don't think Crew wins this tournament, just going to say that right now, but I think they are capable of at least a couple upset victories in their own group. So Group B is this group, so I'm going to save this one for last because that's what a lot of people are doing, because this is an insane group, which means we're moving on to Group C, which features Leviathan versus Talon and Vitality versus Trace. Starting with Leviathan versus Talon. Now, Talon are an interesting team, a bit of a dark horse in the Pacific region, swapping out one of their players at the beginning of the playoff bracket for the phenom known as Primi. Primi being the top ranked player in his region, looking like a very good aimer, very solid mechanics overall. And it ended up working in that first match of their playoffs. They lost their next 2, so was that an experiment that worked because it was a nice secret weapon, Or is what we saw in those last two matches more of what we were expecting? Or was the motivation just really not there for that team because they qualified for champs as soon as they won that first one? Whereas Leviathan are a team with Aspas, who I think is the best player in the world. They didn't qualify for Madrid, but then they went on a strong run in stage 1. A bit of an iffy playoffs during that stage 1, but they ended up making it to Shanghai. A very disappointing run at Shanghai for them. They won 1 out of their 3 matches with some bad map losses during that run. So a lot of people wrote off this team after that, but then during stage 2, they went undefeated until playoffs. They lost to G2 early in the bracket, but they ended up making it all the way to grand finals to rematch against G2, and they beat them. So Leviathan are a very impressive team with some very high tier talent in Aspas, Tex, Mazzino especially right now. Keen is one of the better IGLs in Valorant right now, and he can frag out on his own. So while Talon definitely has some solid talent with Primi and Jip Boys, I don't think they're going to be able to overcome just the sheer talent and just how Leviathan is playing right now. I don't think Talon can stand up against it. It is an upset that I see as a possibility, but I don't think it happens. Moving on, we have Team Vitality versus Trace. Now, Team Vitality is a team that came into the VCT 2024 season with some pretty high expectations and weren't able to meet them until stage 2. On paper, the roster is pretty solid with some really good talent in Safe and Trex. They have a pretty deep roster that finally found their footing in stage 2 and ended up going on an impressive playoff run to make it to this tournament. And Trace Esports is the 3rd seed out of the China region, having the same record during the regular season splits as their counterparts in EDG and FPX. They were able to beat FPX at first in the playoff bracket, but then lost to them in the lower final. So they're the 3rd seed in China, and they look like the 3rd best team. China's a region that I really don't know how they're going to do at this tournament. It's a complete wild card with all 4 teams. But overall, I think Vitality just have the better talent overall, and Trace not being able to beat the top 2 teams in China, I think both of those teams are going to have a hard time against teams in this tournament as well. So if Trace is the lesser of those teams, then I don't see them winning against Vitality. Starting with this elimination match, I think Talon definitely have a good shot at winning this one. Overall, I think they're going to be really motivated after that loss against Leviathan to be able to beat Trace. And then moving on to Leviathan versus Team Vitality. So we have one of the kings, if not the king of the Americas right now, winning in the most recent playoff bracket, taking home the VCT Americas trophy, and then Team Vitality, who were the runner-ups at the EMEA Stage 2 playoffs. So which team ends up having the edge here? Honestly, Leviathan should have it. They definitely have better talent overall than Vitality, while Vitality have Safe, who is just absolutely incredible. I think Aspas is probably the better duelist. Don't think that's a controversial statement. However, I do think upsets are going to happen in this bracket. There are going to be some results that people are surprised by. And do I see Leviathan potentially losing one against a team like Vitality? Yeah, I'm going to pick it. I think Leviathan should be the favorites, but overall, I think Vitality might just be able to find that edge and get it done. But don't worry, Leviathan fans, I definitely think they win the rematch against Talon. Leviathan are still going to be in the playoff bracket, even if they lose once. So this brings us to Group D, which features EDG versus Foot, as well as G2 versus Paper X, which is a rematch from Shanghai. Starting with EDG versus Foot, EDG have had a very disappointing performance at both internationals this year. Last year in 2023, when they made that explosive entrance at Tokyo, they looked like potentially they were the best team out of China, easily, but also a team that could contend at the international level. But then they had the streak of winning 1 or 2 matches during their tournament runs, but not been able to do much more than that. They're able to upset teams that are seen as better than them, but they haven't looked like a team that can contend for a trophy just yet. And after having a long streak of placing 5th to 6th at different tournaments, they finally broke that streak at Shanghai on home turf by placing even worse. So definitely not the upward progression that they were looking for. But hey, maybe the pressure of being on their home turf really got to them. That seems to be the case, at least. So maybe with that pressure off, you're in Korea, so a rival country, a rival city, definitely not going to be the most welcoming to them. At least that's my assumption. So maybe playing the villain role will work a little bit better for them. However, their opponents in Foot are nothing to shake at. Foot are a team that have been able to make it to international tournaments time after time since they joined the Partnership League. However, they haven't been able to do much at those internationals. Their best run was at Shanghai. They did have a pretty decent run there, beating their EMEA rivals in Fnatic. This all-Turkish squad definitely has some solid talent on there with CNET and Mr. Fallen. And overall, do I see them beating a team like EDG? Do I think that EDG are probably going to be more motivated to make this a really good tournament for them, probably. But I just don't really see it for any of the China teams at this tournament, and I think Foot are going to be more prepared for this match. Moving on, we have G2 versus Paper X, which is a rematch from Shanghai. Famously, Paper X were the top seed in the Pacific region, and they got to pick which opponent they faced in the playoff bracket, and they ended up picking G2, which they thought was a good matchup for them because G2, they play very slow, they play a more defensive style, and Paper X are W Gaming, so they just go. But what that ended up happening is being the complete opposite and completely backfired against Paper X. G2's slow, methodical, disciplined style completely countered what Paper X was doing, and they really just destroyed them in those last two maps. So with thinking about that match and thinking about stylistically how these two teams face up against one another, G2 are definitely the favorites, and that's what I've seen in a lot of other people's pick'ems. However, I think some people are tending to overcorrect with this and say that Paper X now is bad because they are the third seed of the Pacific region heading into this, not being as dominant in the region in Stage 2 as they've been in the past, but I don't think that really matters for them all that much. I'm not going to be picking Paper X to win this tournament because I've picked them for the last 3 tournaments to win, and it's not happening again. I don't think they're going to win one. But do I think they have a chance against G2? Yes, I think it's more than what a lot of people are saying. However, I am going to pick G2 for this one. I think G2 are going to start off their run strong. Which brings us to the rematch of EDG versus Paper X. These two teams have faced a lot. Paper X usually has the better in the matchup, and I think that's going to continue to be the same. Moving on, we have Foot versus G2. Two really good teams that maybe aren't the favorites out of their league, but did have very strong runs in Stage 2. Foot not having as good of a playoffs as they probably wanted, but I don't know if that matters too much. But I do think G2 are going to be able to make it through to this one. I think they make it to the playoff bracket. I do think it'll be closer than what a lot of people would expect this matchup to be, but I think it's going to be close, but G2 ends up getting the edge. Which brings us to Paper X versus Foot. Listen, I'm sorry, Foot. I think Foot have the potential to win this one, but I think Paper X are going to at least make it to the playoffs. Which brings us to Group B, the so-called Group of Death. This group features 3 teams that have made it to a grand finals of a tournament this year. Gen.G making it to the grand finals of Madrid and losing to Sentinels, who won that whole tournament. And they also made it to the grand finals of Shanghai and won against Team Heretics. So Heretics were the runner-up. Gen.G have won a tournament, Sentinels have won a tournament. So honestly, I think whoever makes it out of this group is going to win a tournament. And I think you choose any one of these 3 teams. And then there's also FPX, but that's it's whatever. Sorry fans of that team, but like it's like how are they going to do it? Starting with the Gen.G versus Sentinels match. Now Gen.G I think are the favorites to win this whole tournament. I think they have the best map pool in the world. They have the best players in the world right now. Texture is absolutely at least top 3 in the world right now. Karon is probably the best rookie in the entire VCT in 2024, but their other players in Meteor, Lakia, and Munchkin are all very talented as well. Aside from their loss in grand finals to Sentinels at Madrid, this team has not dropped a single international match aside from that Madrid. Think about that for a second. This is a run at 2 different masters that is so far, I think, unprecedented. Back in 2021, Sentinels didn't drop a map to win Reykjavik. I know that happened, but Gen.G doing this over the course of 2 tournaments, absolutely insane. However, Sentinels are making their return to the international stage. They did not qualify for Shanghai after a very rocky Stage 1. And for the most part, their Stage 2 was very solid. They looked a lot better than they did earlier, but then they ended their Stage 2 by losing to G2 to give up that 2nd seed in the Americas playoffs, and then losing to 100 Thieves, a matchup that they typically always win. So right now, Sentinels don't look like the same team that went on a very impressive run at Madrid to take that tournament. On paper, Gen.G should have the upper hand in this matchup, absolutely. They look like they have the better roster. They're probably looking for revenge on Sentinels, so they're probably going to come in very angry. So while I will agree with a lot of the picks that people have been doing with Gen.G, I think if there's an upset that could happen, I think this one is probably one of the bigger ones. I know I'm going to get called biased towards the Americas. I understand it, but I do think Sentinels have a chance in this one. I think either team could win. I think this group is absolutely crazy, but I think Sentinels are going to really come in prepared. And honestly, I think losing like this is probably going to be good for Gen G in the long run. You can't win every single game, and I think if they're going to break that win streak, which I think is going to be broken, I think it happens here. Then they can just get that loss over with and go on whatever run that they end up going on. Then we have FPX versus Team Heretics. Now, FPX definitely improved at their last international appearance at Shanghai, looking like the best China team at that tournament. However, going from winning 0 matches at internationals to winning just 1 match, not exactly a huge improvement, but hey, it's something, so that's pretty good. But Team Heretics are an insanely good team. Heretics are the runners-up from Shanghai, and they went on an incredible run during that tournament with Panatek in the lineup as a stand-in. Wasn't supposed to be there. Miniboo was supposed to be there, but he decided to step out, and then they went on a crazy run. They don't have Panatek anymore. Miniboo is back in, and honestly, they don't look like the same team that went on that crazy run. Heretics throughout their time this year have had honestly kind of an up and down year. Really good kickoff tournament to qualify for Madrid, a decent stage 1 that ended up with them making it to Shanghai. Crazy run at Shanghai, and now a mediocre stage 2 with the mediocre playoffs, losing to Vitality twice. So is this team in a bit of a slump, or is the fact that it's just within their own region make it so that it doesn't matter for this tournament? Because internationally, they should be able to turn it on. I do think that is the case. I think Heretics absolutely are one of the contenders for this team. I think they're kind of EMA's best chance to win, and I think they're going to do it against FPX. I don't see that as a crazy upset that's going to happen. I don't think FPX is going to be able to beat Heretics. Moving on to Gen G versus FPX. Just going to say that right now. Not going to, yeah. So Sentinels versus Team Heretics. These two teams last faced at Madrid, where Sentinels did get the better of Heretics. So with Heretics looking for revenge, Sentinels looking to get into the playoff bracket and go on a deep run. I think if Sentinels start off their tournament by winning against Gen G, I think they're going to be able to do against Heretics as well. Which means we have the Shanghai Grand Finals rematch in the lower bracket. And while I really like Heretics' chances for this whole tournament, one of these 3 very good teams that made it to the Grand Finals of each tournament, I think if it comes to this, either way, I have to put out a really good team. So I'm sorry for fans of the team that I'm going to choose to get knocked out, but I think Gen G are going to win that one. Sorry, Heretics. So those are my pick'ems for the VCT Champions 2024 group stage. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think of my pick'ems. I know I'm going to get called NA bias. I'm sorry. But either way, I think you could put your bracket in any sort of way, especially for this group, and I wouldn't think that you're crazy. Because, hey, predictions are just that. It's impossible to predict what is going to happen in the VCT from one game to the next, from one tournament to the next. What I do know is it's going to be an incredible tournament, and we're going to see some really good teams knocked out early that people don't expect to, and some really bad teams, or teams that people think are bad, go on some crazy runs. So we'll see what ends up happening. I'm very excited. Let me know in the comment section down below what teams you would choose. Please click like if you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.